Hey viewers, this is not your ordinary tutorial episode that I always do on YouTube. Today's video is to invite you to join my second live stream. I rarely do live stream. The first one was here, go watch this, you're going to enjoy this. And this is going to be my second live stream. I look forward to have you joining us where we're going to be doing shoots and also answering your questions live. And speaking of questions, this is also what today's tutorial is about, to do an experiment. For the longest time, fashion photographers know this trick, that when you use hard light on your subject, it's just going to make the color more saturated. Hard light means that light which is not modified with big modifiers like the softbox or the umbrellas. So they love to use hard light because they just bring out the texture and the colors of the garment. When you say bring out the texture of the garment, I totally understand because it brings out a lot of highlight and shadows. But how does hard light bring out saturation in color? That is something that I've always noticed when I use hard light. But at the same time, there's something that I never could understand theoretically or never really have the chance to experiment it. And this is what I'm going to do together with you. What I'm doing here is to clip a prosperity tassel that we have here. This is something that we hang in Asian home, in Chinese home. We hang it on our door handles. That's something that's going to bring us a lot of good luck. Now the thing is that this is so red and so saturated. I've mounted my camera here. I'm going to go to my camera setting now to give you an idea what I'm doing. I'm going to start with an ISO of just ISO 100, f11 and shutter speed 200. As you can see, what I'm trying to do here is to allow me a setting that will allow me to add on light. And speaking of which, I'm just going to have one light. And I have this one light aimed directly to this red color tassel. Now the logic here is this. I'm going to start with bare flash, which is going to be the hardest light. Hard lights mean lights that are not modified and not big. And I'm going to add on the smallest umbrella that I have in front of here. When I do that, two things happen. It's going to cut away the power of the light by 2 stops, which I'm going to add back. But at the same time, what's more important is that I make this light softer, which means that the result of that will not be so saturated, the color. And then progressing on, I'm going to add the medium-sized umbrella that we have. And then finally, the biggest umbrella that we have. So that should change the saturation of the color. And then I've got to worry about how I measure the saturation. But I have an idea. I'm going to head on to Photoshop and use the HSB, which is hue, saturation, and brightness. And hopefully I can get a consistent reading that's going to show me that when I go from soft light to hard light, the saturation of that red is going to increase. Let's start with a hard light. What is the power of the light I'm going to use here? I wouldn't know, but I'm going to start with 1/4 of a power, a zoom of 35, and let's see what happens. This is about 3 feet away, so this should be correct. This flash here is on manual mode. That's just going to trigger that. So every time this flash goes off, that flash is going to go off. So I'm going to cut to my camera setting now so that you can have an idea how it looks like. This is how it looks like. And I'm going to be focused here with my macro lens. Good. Let's take that shot now. Bare flash, the hardest light that we have now. And this is how it looks like. So if you look at this photo, the white balance, it fixed at 5000 Kelvin. Moving on, I'm going to add this smallest umbrella that I have, which is still going to be hard light, but not as hard as a bare flash. And when I do so, I'm going to increase the power of the flash. So that's about full power now. Take a shot. Okay, consistent in the exposure. The second softest light that I have. And then take a shot with the same settings. Don't forget, when I add on the umbrella, I've already added the power of the light by 2 stops now. Okay, so you're looking at a photo of the second largest umbrella. And finally, this one. The biggest umbrella. This is so big, this is actually meant for the studio strobes that I have, not for this hot shoe flash. But I'm going to put it just about a finger's length. And I noticed that the center of the light is no longer pointing upward, so I'm just going to be fair, making sure that the center of the light is hitting the saddle. And take another shot. Okay. I'm pretty impressed with the exposure that we managed to get here. So we're going to bring this to the computer. I'm going to figure out how we can check the saturation. Just stay right here. Let me boot up my computer. So viewers, you're looking at my desktop. I'm going to use my favorite editing software, the Adobe Photoshop, and show you how I can measure saturation on a specific spot for every photo. So I'm going to find the photo that we took, which is based on time. These are the ones. I'm going to label them as purple and open up in Photoshop. So there you have it, the 4 photos. We start with 66, which is the bare flash, the smallest umbrella, the medium umbrella, and then the biggest umbrella. I'm glad that the exposure is so consistent. Okay, so how do you measure consistently the saturation of one point? We're going to pick one point. I'm looking at this point here. But I've got to make sure that there's no highlight here. Looking at this now, I can see my mistake of choosing this item to shoot. There's so much of texture, and every time there's texture meeting hard light, you're going to get different tones. You're going to have highlight tones, and then you're going to have shadow. So let's look at this one. Is this a good point? This seems like a good point. So I'm going to use this here. What about here? This seems like a good point. This is also a good point. All right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come here. I'm going to drag this down a ruler so that I end up picking the same spot every time. This is where I'm going to be picking. Then I'm going to go to the smallest umbrella, copy this layer, close this off, come here and paste this as a layer on top, so that's easier for me to measure. So as you can see, this is small umbrella. And then I'm going to move on to the medium size umbrella, close this off, paste this as a layer on top. This is medium size umbrella. And then finally the largest umbrella, paste this on top, large. So to consistently and unbiased way of measuring the exposure at the saturation, I'm going to turn each and every one of them off. So that's it. We're going to start with the largest umbrella. So I'm going to put my color picker exactly at this point. And what you see here, if you go to window and turn on your info, you're going to see this little floating little screen here. If you don't see HSB, which stands for hue, saturation, and brightness, you can actually do this here. So most of yours would have actual color. So instead of having an actual color, go to HSB color. And you should be able to see this now. But let me quickly just go through with you how it works. This is the most saturated rate. As you can see, it's 99% on the saturation. As I start reducing red or adding more white, you notice that the saturation becomes lower. So that's the basis of how we're going to measure this. So this is on the largest umbrella. So Ella, you're going to help me to remember. This is, oh my God, I'm in trouble now because the saturation is 100%. I can see how this experiment is going to fail now, because with the largest umbrella, I am clocking in at 100%. Okay, this is just going to go south now. I'm going to turn this layer off and then put this here, which is still 100%. Thank God. And then the small one. What I'm going to get? 120%? This is crazy. It's 99% on the smallest umbrella. And then finally on the bare flash. That's 89%. Hang on. That's 92, 93%. Oh boy. Looks like it's completely reverse of what the theory teaches us, that hard light makes the color more saturated. Well, I can see that the color is more saturated overall, but am I doing the right thing? Is the texture really screwing this up? Oh boy, I think I'm going to do another version of this. Instead of using something with so much of texture, I'm going to use something more flat perhaps. Let's go back to the studio now. When you look at this product now, it's so filled with texture, it's just not a good comparison. I've got a better idea. Maybe we can use something like a color card like this. You know, that we use to check our product. Whenever we do a product shoot, we put this item here, and then we can know whether this color is correct. And what I like about this is that maybe this will function better because it's flat. It doesn't have texture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this. Many of you were asking me where you can buy this. If you head on to your local stores that sell all this pop-up display for showrooms, you can actually get something like this. So I'm going to clip this here. Right. If you don't have this, you can actually use anything that's flat to try this out. And here's my discussion. My point is that if we do this correctly, we should be able to get hard light giving a very saturated color. And I want to see whether this is correct. If it is, we are open for discussion. How this happens. So we're going to start with the bigger light. That thing is flat, so what I'm going to do, the biggest mistake that I'm going to make is to fire a flash directly on it, and that is going to create a lot of specular highlight, regardless how that thing not shiny it is. So I'm going to bring the power down to 1/4 the original power. Settings on my camera is still the same. For those that missed it, my ISO is 100, f11, shutter speed 200. This is about 3 feet away at the power 1/4. The zoom is 35 millimeter. This is going to trigger that. Reposition my camera and focus. That's the first shot with the bare flash. It looks a little bit overexposed. If you look at the photo now, the color looks a bit washed out, which means that I'm a little bit too bright here, so I'm going to bring this down. We cannot compare this piece of paper with the red color tester that we have. So I'm going to move this one stop down at 1/8 of a power. And I'm going to delete this so that we don't confuse ourselves. All right. Okay, and then we're going to look at the histogram. That's pretty good. Nothing is near the highlight. All of these peaks that you see here represent each swatch of color. Now, if you move up, you're going to see that one of this is red, it's green, it's blue. So we're going to, if you're really watching this episode now, I strongly invite you to head onto my e-learning website here and check out this e-learning that we have, which is Understanding Histogram. This is a really good e-learning that you can learn about what histogram can tell you, whether you're overexposed, underexposed, what colored histogram is. And also at the same time, you may want to check out these colors in photography e-learning that we have. These are really two good e-learnings that you must subscribe to. So head on to my website, which is at beyond.photos. Now, I'm going to make this a little bit better and take another shot. Let's repeat this. Okay, so the histogram looks healthy. The red looks good. What I'm going to do now, that's the bare flash. I'm going to add on the smallest umbrella that we have, which is still hard, but not as hard as the bare flash. When you add an umbrella, it's going to cut away 2 stops. So I'm going to add back 2 stops of light and 1/2 now. Nope. Raise the light a little bit. Okay, take this away, replace this with a medium-sized umbrella. I hope this will give us a more consistent result because this piece of color checker doesn't have texture as much as the other one. Okay, the biggest one that we have. Again, we're gonna head on to the computer. Okay, so this is the color checker photo. So I'm gonna open these 4 photos now. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drag this here. This will serve as a marker so that I consistently take from the same space. And then go to the smaller umbrella. This is the smaller umbrella, the smallest one. Come back to this photo, paste it on top, look at my layers, call this small so that I don't get confused. And then the medium size umbrella. And come back to the bare flash. So those who are confused, what I'm doing here is that to allow me to be able to check consistently at the same spot, what I'm doing is I'm going to every photo and pasting them on top of one photo. So this is the medium umbrella. And finally, I'm gonna come to 75, which is the biggest umbrella. Copy this and come to 72 and paste this and call this biggest umbrella. Now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put my color picker exactly here. This is 69% on the biggest umbrella in saturation. Go back to my layer. Let's go to medium now. Move this out of the way so that you can see. 68%. Still the same. Smallest umbrella, 63%. And the background, which is the bare flash. That's 63%. That is completely opposite of what we always understand, that the smaller the light, the harder the light. So this is bare flash. This is your biggest umbrella. But Yichong, I think I'm measuring this wrong. I'm just measuring one spot. I'm looking at this, and the illusion of highlight and shadow is making it look more saturated. You understand what I'm saying? The tones look a little bit more squished. All right, you tell me what you think. As I turn on the large one, see that? It's more...
Looks more contrasted.
No, this is more contrasted, isn't it? So our definition of saturation is that, look at this. If you look at here, okay, I'm going to move this away. You notice that it's more muted, it's more white compared to this.
This has more punch.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word I want to use, right? So it's that measurement of 1 point that I use is wrong. So I hope somebody actually goes up there and say, "Hey, you idiot, you shouldn't measure 1 point. You should measure," but how do you? I've got an idea. What if I blur this? You get what I'm saying? I take a section, okay? And then I crop it into here. Now I take a bigger section. You just don't take one Malaysian and then say, "Oi, you are late. Every Malaysian is late." You got to take a few Malaysians. You got to take Yichong, you got to take Ella, and then you realize that none of these 2 idiots are late. There's only one guy that's late. So you know what? Yichong, I'm going to crop this. Okay, so I'm going to come here, I'm going to crop this. After I crop this, I'm going to blur this. Okay, I'm going to blur this. How's that? Good? You get what I'm saying? I average it out to 100%, 100 pixels blur. Okay, then I'm going to come up here, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to do the same Gaussian blur. Come up here, I'm going to repeat the same process. And then I'm going to come up here on the biggest umbrella, I'm going to repeat the same process. And only now do I drag this here and then go to my color picker, and then look at info, look at my info, put this exactly here. It doesn't matter now because the whole thing, this is 89% Ella on the biggest umbrella, okay? Turn this off. If this is right, it's gonna go, this is 90 now. And then turn off, look at the small one. 92! And then look at this one now. 89. This is killing me. I realized that hard light is not too hard where you're gonna create a lot of highlight and the net value of the highlight is gonna combine and then give it more white. You get what I'm saying? If you look at this, it appears darker and darker until, look at this. It's darker, and then suddenly, boom, it becomes whiter. I can't wait to hear the viewers' better idea, isn't it? So viewers, this is what I'm trying to ask you to do. That I do this experiment because we all know that the harder the light, which means that light which is not small, lights that creates a lot of highlight and shadow at the same time, not so forgiving light, hard light, it's supposed to increase saturation. And we've seen that happening when we really take photo. But why is it when I do experiments with this red color tassel and when I use this color checker using hard light and soft light, I don't get consistent result. So this is what this episode is about. I want to hear your opinion. What did I do wrong? Or is the theory wrong? Or we psychologically thought that hard light gives higher saturation. Is it true? I'd like to hear your opinion. And not only that, head on to the section, the comment section there. Tell me where I go wrong, how we can improve this experiment. And speaking of experiment, I'd like to invite you to our second live stream on YouTube here. So this is the info right here. Don't miss out because we're going to be doing shoots together, and at the same time, I'm going to be discussing about all these rules of photography and lighting as well. And if we have time during the live stream, we're going to discuss about what hard light and soft light can affect your photo shoot. So hurry, don't miss this date for my second live stream on YouTube here. I look forward to see you and hear your comment and discussion and tell me how we can improve this experiment. Is it wrong or is the theory wrong? How does hard light create higher saturation? So I'll see you in my live stream.